With half of the year behind us, it's now time to look forward to the rest of 2022 and all the games that it will bring. While the first half of the year felt a bit bare bones in terms of quantity, no one can argue that the quality was lacking with games like Horizon Forbidden West, and the rest of the year doesn't look like it's going to be a slouch either. So without further ado, here are 30 more games set to come out in 2022. The Last of Us Part 1, PS5, September 2nd. A ground-up remake of 2013's seminal The Last of Us Part 1, hopes to reimagine the game with all of the lessons Studio Naughty Dog learned in developing Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2. Alongside the obvious graphical upgrade, The Last of Us Part 1 will also feature revamped combat, improved gameplay, and better AI. The Last of Us Part 1's story revolves around the journey of Joel and Ellie. Joel has to deliver Ellie to a research facility since she is somehow immune to the cordyceps that have otherwise destroyed human civilization. Focusing on its story, The Last of Us Part 1 features several emotional scenes and plenty of character development for both characters. The Last of Us Part 1 is coming to PS5 and PC, but the PC version doesn't yet have a release date. God of War Ragnarok, PS5, November 9th. Following up on 2018's God of War would be no easy task, but developer Sony Santa Monica Studio and creative director Cory Barlog seem to be up to the challenge. While little is known about the game other than the core cast of Kratos and Atreus returning, its story seems to be a direct continuation after the events of God of War. Kratos and Atreus are now looking for some answers regarding some of the revelations from the previous game, and must deal with a powerful ally turned foe. Splatoon 3, Nintendo Switch, November 9th. Nintendo's seminal shooter franchise is back with a hip new installment. Splatoon 3's story will revolve around new Agent 3 who hopes to investigate the Octarian army in the land of Alterna. The game's setting got shaken up by the events of Splatoon 2, and now Inklings and Octolings coexist. Moving away from the previous city of Inkopolis, Splatoon 3's central hub looks like a desert-like zone called the Splatlands. Much like the previous Splatoon games, Splatoon 3 will likely feature the same paint-the-map core game mode, new customization options, and a strange and awesome new soundtrack. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Nintendo Switch, July 29th. The next JRPG in the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will center around two nations locked together in an eternal war. Both nations occupy opposite ends of the magic versus technology spectrum, and their machinations led to the gathering of the game's 6 heroes, 3 from each kingdom. The heroes on the run from both nations have to band together and put an end to the eternal conflict. The gameplay will likely be quite similar to the previous Xenoblade Chronicles games, featuring a hybrid turn-based system that heavily incentivizes the use of combo abilities to disable monsters and deal great damage. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Nintendo Switch, November 18th. Another year, another pair of Pokemon games, this time dubbed Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. The new games will be making use of similar open-world gameplay as what we got to see in Pokemon Legends Arceus. The core combat, however, will follow the lead of earlier Pokemon games with their turn-based battle systems. Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet will also be the first time that the pair of games will feature separate Pokemon professors, as opposed to the single professor in previous games. The 3 starter Pokemon this time around are the Grass type Sprigatito, the Water type Fuecoco, and the Fire type Quaxley. Saints Row, PC, PS5, Xbox Series. August 23rd. The newest installment in the Saints Row franchise acts as more of a reboot than a sequel to its predecessor, featuring a new cast of characters, including a brand new version of the protagonist called the Boss in-game. Saints Row will feature open-world action gameplay, similar to what we got in Saints Row 2 and Saints Row the Third. The game also is bringing back one of the franchise's tentpole features, some of the most in-depth character customization in gaming. Saints Row will take place in the city of Santo Iso in the American Southwest. The city is under control of 3 gangs, Los Penteros, the Idols, and Marshall Defense Industries. The game's story will revolve around the protagonist starting their own gang alongside 3 characters from the other gangs, as they try to take over the city. Saints Row will also likely see the return of several beloved side activities from throughout the franchise, including insurance fraud. Soul Hackers 2, Nintendo Switch, August 25th. A surprise when it was announced, Soul Hackers 2 is a sequel to the classic Shin Megami Tensei spin-off franchise, and is technically the 5th game in a series, started by Devil Summoner. The game revolves around an incoming apocalypse. An entity named Aeon creates 2 agents to protect 2 characters. Upon reaching Earth, however, both agents find out that their targets are already dead. One of them is able to use the Soul Hack ability to bring the protagonist Arrow back to life, and they must go and figure out the mystery behind the apocalypse. Gameplay will likely be similar to classic Shin Megami Tensei-style turn-based battles, with a focus on elemental weaknesses, buffing allies, and debuffing enemies. Expect the story to be grim, and the gameplay to be difficult. Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed, PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, August 30th. As its name might imply, Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed is a remake of the original Destroy All Humans 2, carrying over the same plot details and setting. Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed is set to feature physics-based mayhem as its core gameplay hook. The story revolves around Cryptosporidium 138, posing as the President of the United States, and is set in the 1960s. The primary antagonists of Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed will be the KGB, since the Cold War is in full swing during the setting of the game. After release, the game will also get a multiplayer DLC, Clone Carnage, allowing players to challenge each other in different game modes. The Lord of the Rings Gollum, PC, PS4, 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, September 1st. Focusing on the titular Gollum, The Lord of the Rings Gollum is a stealth adventure that hopes to retell the story of the events of the Fellowship of the Ring from a new perspective. The primary protagonist of the game is Gollum, who isn't exactly the most proficient combatant in Middle-earth. Because of this, he has to sneak around the Lord of the Rings setting in his quest to get back the one ring stolen from him by Bilbo Baggins. The Lord of the Rings Gollum will feature the internal struggle between the 2 facets of Gollum's personality, Gollum and Smeagol, and the player's actions will decide which side of his personality takes over. Scorn, PC and Xbox Series, October. Scorn is an upcoming first-person shooter with a focus on being atmospheric. Borrowing heavily from the works of H.R. Giger, Scorn features some grotesquely beautiful architecture and a generally eerie atmosphere as the player explores its interconnected region. Every location in Scorn will feature its own themes, story, puzzles, and characters, and new areas will open up as the player finds new weapons, skills, and items. Since the emphasis is on atmospheric horror, ammo and other resources will be scarce, and it will be up to the player to figure out how to make full use of their limited resources. Players will also have to occasionally switch up their playstyle to advance further in the game. Hogwarts Legacy, PC, PS4, 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch, December. Set in the 1800s in the Harry Potter universe, Hogwarts Legacy has players step into the shoes of a new student in the titular School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Hogwarts Legacy will feature open-world action RPG gameplay, and its story revolves around a student being the key to an ancient secret that might spell the end of the wizarding world. Players will get to live their Hogwarts school life and battle it out against dark wizards. Owing to its 1800s setting, Hogwarts Legacy will feature elements familiar to Harry Potter fans while still keeping things fresh with new ideas. Gotham Knights, PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, October 25th. A spiritual successor to the Batman Arkham games, Gotham Knights is a new open-world action RPG set in Gotham City. The game is set to feature some of the most interactive gameplay the franchise has seen so far, and will allow for solo play as well as drop-in co-op. Its story revolves around the aftermath of Batman's death. The Batman family, Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Robin now have to take on the mantle of being Gotham's protectors. Each playable character will feature a unique fighting style, allowing players quite a bit of variety depending on their choice. F1 Manager 2022, PC, PS4, 5, Xbox One, and Series, August 30th. Developed by Jurassic World Evolution maker Frontier Developments, F1 Manager 2022 puts players in charge of an F1 team on its journey through the official 2022 F1 season. Players will have to manage their teams to success, hitting goals at both seasonal levels as well as long-term targets. Players will also have to manage staff, including drivers, research and development, and other aspects. The game will feature races shown in broadcast-style visuals with onboard and trackside camera angles across all of its circuits. F1 Manager 2022 is hoping to provide as realistic a simulation of the sport as it possibly can. The Callisto Protocol. PC, PS4, 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, December 2nd. Made by several of the developers behind the Dead Space franchise, Callisto Protocol is a new horror game set in one of Jupiter's dark, dead moons. Set 300 years into the future, the Callisto Protocol will focus on the journey of player character Jacob Lee as he tries to survive and fight his way to safety. The gameplay will feature a blend of shooting alongside close quarters combat. The game will also feature a gravity gun that players can use to fling things around. It is worth noting that the Callisto Protocol will feature a considerable amount of gore in keeping with its horror trappings, and a core gameplay mechanic revolves around shooting off the limbs of the horrors that are trying to kill you. Hello Neighbor 2. PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch. December 6th. Much like its predecessor, Hello Neighbor 2 is a stealth-based horror game that revolves around the player digging up details on their creepy neighbor. A new feature in Hello Neighbor 2 over the first game is the presence of AI-controlled neighbors that, over time, learn the player's style of playing, improving its own capabilities of finding and surprising the player. Hello Neighbor 2 features an entire town to explore, along with plenty of houses with their own residents. The game is currently available as a beta for those that have pre-ordered it. A Plague Tale Requiem. PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch. October 18th. Following the events of A Plague Tale Innocence, A Plague Tale Requiem features the return of the two protagonists, Amicia and Hugo, as they travel far south to new regions. Things go wrong, however, when Hugo's powers reawaken, bringing back the flood of rats. Forced to flee again, the duo are now trying to get to an island that is said to hold the secrets to controlling Hugo's powers. A big theme in A Plague Tale Requiem will be the cost one pays to save those they love. Gameplay will feature stealth as well as action, with a variety of weapons, items, and powers. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch. Winter of 2022. A remake of the classic PSP exclusive Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core Final Fantasy Reunion hopes to retell the story with a new coat of paint. Despite the events of Final Fantasy VII Remake, however, Crisis Core Final Fantasy Reunion won't feature new story elements. Instead, it will focus on reintroducing the character of Zack to a new audience that is likely interested in learning more about the character after playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. Reunion features revamped gameplay with a menu-based combat system, as well as full voice acting, including for scenes that previously weren't voice acted. Sonic Frontiers. PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch, 2022. In Sonic's first outing in an open-world game, Sonic Frontiers features the Hedgehog along with his friends Tails and Amy, investigating the disappearance of the Chaos Emeralds on the Starfall Islands. A dimensional portal sucks the trio, separating them in the process, leaving Sonic alone in a strange world called cyberspace, which he then escapes from on to the Kronos Island. Since this is the first Sonic game to feature an open world, expect plenty of new ideas that may or may not pan out once all is said and done. In terms of gameplay, Sonic's arsenal of moves will be greatly expanded to help him deal with the new level of freedom players will have. Need for Speed. PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, rumored for November 4th. While not yet confirmed, a new Need for Speed game is rumored to be coming in November. The game, possibly titled Need for Speed Unbound, will take place in a fictionalized version of Chicago called Lakeshore City, according to leaks. The game will also feature anime-styled elements in its visuals, and will likely draw heavy inspiration from classic racing anime like Initial D. More details will undoubtedly be revealed closer to the game's launch. Return to Monkey Island. PC and Nintendo Switch, 2022. The sixth game in the classic Monkey Island franchise, Return to Monkey Island, features the return of series director Ron Gilbert, taking the helm once more after last having worked on Monkey Island 2: LeChuck's Revenge. The story will once again star Guybrush Threepwood, mighty pirate, many years after his last battle with zombie pirate LeChuck. The gameplay will feature point-and-click puzzle solving, keeping it in line with the classic adventure games of the 90s. The story involves Guybrush embarking on a new adventure to truly figure out what the secret of Monkey Island was, set in the backdrop of changing times and hipster pirates. As Dusk Falls, PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, July 19th. As Dusk Falls is a cinematic adventure game with a focus on storytelling. The game revolves around a few characters caught in a robbery in 1998 gone horribly wrong in a small town in Arizona. As Dusk Falls' story revolves around the choices these characters made in their past, and how these choices have come back to the present to haunt them. The primary focus of the story is a pair of families, each with their own deep-rooted issues and toxic influences. As Dusk Falls will also feature co-op multiplayer for up to 8 players either locally or online. Stray, PC, PS4, and PS5, July 19th. Set in a cyberpunk setting, Stray has players take on the role of a stray cat, lost in a world of robots. The cat is trying to make its way back home to its family and finds help in the form of a small drone called B-12. Stray features a lot of interactivity and allows players to be either stealthy, nimble, silly, or as annoying as they possibly can for the inhabitants of its cyberpunk setting. The core gameplay features puzzle solving, exploration, and even a bit of combat. Solstice, PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, 2022. Solstice is an action RPG featuring a coming-of-age story set against the backdrop of a dark fantasy setting. It features fast-paced combat, plenty of boss fights, and an interesting dynamic between its two protagonists, Briar and Lute. The two sisters have been reborn as Chimera, granting Briar superhuman strength and resilience, and turning Lute into a ghost with mystical powers. The fast-paced combat involves players controlling both Briar and Lute simultaneously to make use of both of their strengths. Briar handles melee combat, while Lute is able to control the battlefield with her ghostly abilities. Deliver Us Mars, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, September 27th. An atmospheric adventure game, Deliver Us Mars takes place on, you guessed it, Mars. Taking place a decade after the events of Deliver Us the Moon, Deliver Us Mars features Earth's youngest astronaut, Kathy Johansen, joining the crew of the Zephyr on its final mission, recovering the Ark colony ship from its captors. On the gameplay side of things, Deliver Us Mars features traversal, puzzle solving, and exploration. Players have to figure out the motivation behind the distress signal that led them to Mars. The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero, PC, PS4, and Nintendo Switch, September 27th on PC and September 30th on PS4 and Switch. The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero is more of a localization rather than a full-fledged video game release. Trails from Zero kicks off the second story arc in the Trails series after the Trails of Sky trilogy. It takes place in the city of Crossbell, where 4 rookie cops have to improve the reputation of the police by joining the new Special Support Section division. Rather than being a globe-trotting adventure, The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero focuses primarily on Crossbell City. The game also features new tactical gameplay with a host of new attacks and abilities. Resident Evil Village Shadows of Rose, PC, PS4, 5, Xbox One and Series, and Stadia, October 28th. Taking place a number of years after the events of Resident Evil Village, Shadows of Rose is a DLC focusing on Ethan's daughter Rose. Shadow of Rose will feature a third-person perspective rather than Resident Evil Village's first-person gameplay. It will still feature the classic horror elements that made Village so good, just with a different perspective. Sons of the Forest, PC, October 2022. From the makers of The Forest, Sons of the Forest is a brand new survival game. The setup this time around, rather than involving the victims of a plane crash, revolves around the player being sent to a remote island to find a missing billionaire. Things go wrong, however, and the player quickly finds themselves having to hide from cannibals as they try and survive. The studio likes to call Sons of the Forest a survival horror simulator, and it features free-form gameplay. The crafting system is being taken up a notch, and players will have to extensively interact with objects to craft things. For example, to make fires, players will have to break sticks. Making a window in a wall will need players to take an axe to their wall. Sons of the Forest will also feature a weather system, complete with seasons. Multiversus, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, July 2022. Multiversus is a platform fighting game in the vein of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The roster, however, is based on several IP owned by Warner Bros. This can lead to some wacky matches with absurd teams like Scooby teaming up with Batman or Shaggy teaming up with Korra. Multiversus features various maps from across the game's roster's different worlds, including the Batcave and Jake and Finn's Tree Fort from Adventure Time. The multiplayer will be cross-platform, even featuring cross-platform progression. Game modes include a 2v2 co-op focused mode, a standard 1v1 mode, and 4-player free-for-alls. Multiversus will also get new playable characters down the line, as well as new stages, game modes, and in-game events. Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals, PC, PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch, 2022. Set 5 years after the events of Oxenfree, Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals features Riley returning to her hometown to investigate some mysterious radio signals. Oxenfree 2 will involve players making crucial choices that affect the outcome of the story. Choices impact various aspects, including Riley's personality, her relationships, and new story options. Oxenfree's radio mechanic is also returning, allowing Riley to communicate with supernatural entities and even letting her travel to the past by tuning the radio to time tears. Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals gameplay largely revolves around communicating with other characters and exploring the world around you. Slime Rancher 2 PC and Xbox Series 2022. Slime Rancher 2 features the return of Beatrix LeBeau in a new setting, Rainbow Island. The game features new slimes to ranch, new biomes to explore, and new mysteries to figure out. The gameplay is similar to its predecessor. Players can wrangle slimes and bring them back to base, eventually building up their own gigantic slime ranch. Slime Rancher 2 will feature several new types of slimes to collect, including the bouncy cotton slime and the aquatic angler slime. The gameplay loop still revolves around exploration and management of the slime ranch, ultimately expanding it into a fully fledged conservatory. That's all for now. If you enjoy what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, now is a great time to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day. After subscribing, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time, right here on Gaming Bolt.